I first met a man named Steve Wilkins a little over a year ago. Steve has pioneered several congregations in Canada. He also leads a bunch of congregations in Cuba. And Steve has tremendous experience in leadership. And recently he was sharing from Psalm 133. So take a listen.
First of all, it's that initial expression of behold. Pay special attention. Take notice. Have a look at this. Allow this for a moment to fill the gaze of your attention. Behold it. Allow it to permeate your mind and your attention and your thinking. Behold, so think about this, and not just once, but meditate on this. How good and how pleasing it is when brothers and sisters dwell together in unity. And I love that it says, behold how good and pleasant it is. That it's good for us and it's pleasant. So it's not good for us and unpleasant, like, doing sit-ups. I've been going back to the gym, lately and trying to get a little bit back in shape. And I hate doing sit-ups, as is probably evident. Sit-ups are not my favorite thing to do. But I know I do them because I know they're good for me. But they're very unpleasant. And I'm glad that the dwelling together in unity is something that is good and that it's pleasant. But I'm also glad that it's pleasant, but that it's also good. So it's not like eating a bag of chips or eating ice cream. That's really pleasant. It's not so good for us. And there's so many things in life like that are really pleasant that aren't good for us. But here, this is both of those things together. How good and how pleasing it is when brothers and sisters, when we dwell together in unity. In order to dwell together, though, you actually have to prioritize time with each other. Because it's great to be unified and to unified on task and unified in vision, maybe in mission. But if you're not actually living together, if you're not dwelling together, if you're not prioritizing time with each other, then we greatly miss out on something. And I believe actually come into danger. I am actually writing a book on relational leadership, and one of the titles, working titles right now, of one of the chapters is just simply this: absence makes the heart grow fungus. And it's this idea of absence when we're not with each other very often, that this, if you know each other really well, you can give each other the benefit of the doubt. But the longer you're apart from people, the more opportunity there is for doubt to creep in. Of why did they say that? Well, why did they talk like that? Why did they do it in this way? And there's there's this opportunity then for doubt to get in and to creep in. And I began to notice this as we began to pioneer in Ottawa. And one of the times of the year that we would have the most conflict, the most difficult time among us as leaders, would be in September, the beginning of September. And I began to think, why is this so difficult? Why does it seem like the beginning of September is so hard? And what I began to notice is it's because we'd had 2.5 months of hardly doing any meetings with each other. Everybody's on holidays. It's summertime. I imagine it's the same down there. That in summertime, lots of people. So getting everybody together in the same room is not very common, not very easy to do regularly. And then it was at the same time, the beginning of September, that you're looking to kind of launch all your, programs and back to school stuff. And so suddenly you're trying to put weight on relationships that aren't very fresh. And, and so it does require, in the house of God, us choosing to dwell together, prioritizing that in our schedule, prioritizing being together, prioritizing our actual fellowship.
So Steve worked pretty closely with a man named Bryn Jones. He was a leader in non-denominational congregations around the world. He actually was kind of coming into his own when I was a pretty new Christian way back. And he pioneered lots and lots of congregations around the world. And he worked kind of in conjunction, on occasion at least, with other fairly well-known leaders who were doing a similar kind of thing. But because of Steve and Bryn's connection and relationship, Bryn opened up to Steve one day about something that happened, and I find this to be pretty profound.
I remember I was driving somewhere in the car with Bryn, and he said, had we learned to actually work together and to be together, we would have taken this nation by now. We would have won Britain. And he said, we've had a major effect. And the reality is, among those different apostolic ministries, or like Terry Virgo and Gerald Coates and Derek Prince and Bryn Jones and all those guys, among those guys, it'd be hard to find a city in the UK that wasn't touched, that didn't have a church, or multiple churches, but didn't at least have a church that could trace their roots back to that sort of movement. And he's like, we've had a major effect on this country. He said, but if we'd actually learned to work together and to be together, we would have won it. We would have taken Britain for Jesus. He says, but our own egos, our own pride, our own insecurities, our own hurts, our own agendas, our own self got in the way. And so we ended up kind of going our separate ways and just kind of working on our own instead of working together. And that stuck with me. And I've remembered that ever since. That was 20 odd years ago. And I've said, God, help us to build differently. Help us to be able to dwell together in unity.